Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Doherty Wesley, and we're here to continue talking about my book, How to Be the Real You. And with it, we're not discussing it, but I wanted you to know How to Be the Real You Go Deeper is a workbook that goes with it. Yes, happy summer solstice, happy winter solstice. This is one of the 8 sacred points of light. And so I send you blessings from my heart to yours. I want to give a big thank you to Patricia Wagner for creating the opportunity here at Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude for us to continue the conversation about my book and all that goes with it. And Patricia's here in the background doing the technology and supporting us as we have our little conversational book study. I thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And I want to share, if you don't know about me, I'm Doherty Wesley, and I am an attorney, an author, a death diva, and a wisdom sharer. I consider myself a resource for evolutionary consciousness, and I consider myself a practical visionary with practical tips and tools, steps to support us on our journey through these times and through the new reality as we step into our timeless true selves, onto our new timelines. I've been on the esoteric, metaphysical, spiritual path since I was 15, which is about 65 years ago. So I bring a very broad and wise experience to the support that I love to share about what I've done and where I'm going and to support you on your journey. So for those who would like to find out more about me and sign up for my mailing list, my website is www.dohertywesley.com. And you can find everything about me right there. So in my book, I started the book with a quote by E.E. Cummings. And E.E. Cummings said, "It takes courage to grow up and be who you are." And I had no idea what a difficult path it was and the courage it took to do that. And I did it. And I am constantly doing it. And I remember when I first started on this path, and I would share with people, I'm really trying to find out what makes me tick. What is it about me? How can I change it? Is it possible? And I remember people saying to me, "Are you crazy? Change yourself? You already are you." And I go, "I'm already me." And I go, "I'm already me." Wait a minute. The question still remains, however, am I the me I want to be? Or am I being the me I'm supposed to be or thought I was supposed to be? Something people told me, this is the way you are, or this is the way you're supposed to be. And I didn't accept that. I said, no, I wonder if I can change this. Can I move along? Can I become real? Can I be myself and find out what that is? Well, I found out there was great value in that self-discovery. It was so valuable to me and supported me in my life. And so I wrote the book, How to Be the Real You, sharing my processes and practices and the things that brought me along on my journey. And so I wanted to share with those as I grew and evolved, share those with others. Now, in the book, I share how self-discovery, how important it is and how it helped me. I talk about our monkey mind, our dear monkey mind. Many people's monkey minds are running their lives and they're not even aware of it. And we need to learn how to tame and train our wonderful monkey mind. So I talk about that. I talk about our new reality. I talk about the 5 keys of freedom, the 5 keys that unlock the door to becoming our true, authentic self. And those 5 keys are what we discussed in our last session last week. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I recommend that you just scroll down. I believe it's still on the page here in Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude, and you can watch that as we discuss the 5 keys, which were accepting yourself, losing the past, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, stop caring what other people think, and allowing yourself to be open and honest with yourself and others. Now, the chapter we're discussing tonight is called Emotional Maturity. Now, we'll talk about what it is, how it works. Do you have it? Do you want it? Is it something that's there already, something we're working on? So I'm here with Danielle Rita, John Schiller, David Wagner, Marianne McKenzie Gennaro, Donna Mulroney, Michelle Rupert, and Paula Wansley. Thank you guys for participating in this conversation. Turn on your cameras, let everybody see you. Yay. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to begin. So before we do that, does anyone have any comments or questions before we dive into emotional maturity? If you do, unmute yourself and share anything you'd like to share. Anything? Okay.
I'm going to say something, Darity.
Oh,
Emotional maturity is having the composure to not react. And that in itself was a golden nugget for me. That's all I'll say.
Oh, well, good. Let's talk more about that. Anybody else?
I'd like to add something.
Sure.
After our class last week, I noticed I was continuing to do the work. Did I have that intention? Maybe, but losing the past is one of the ones that I really worked on and even journaled even last night about it, just to kind of release it and let it go, to forgive. And wow, because without doing that, I noticed I was holding it in and that my stomach was upset. I was upset. And I really realized that I wasn't letting go of the past. So now I'm doing the work, like E.E. Cummins says, you know, it's courageous. It's not been fun, I'll tell you that.
No, it's not fun. No.
So yeah, even with the journaling yesterday, I'm a lot lighter today. I still have a little bit more to go, and we'll talk about that in this chapter.
Yeah.
But yeah, the work keeps working if you work it.
It does. That's what I'd like to say. You got to work it.
I'm Michelle Rupert. All right.
Okay. Okay, so well, let's talk about emotional maturity. There are many aspects and attributes to emotional maturity, but the three I found the most important for me, which we're going to all talk about, was responsibility, flexibility, and non-judgment. The best one, of course, non-judgment. Fun work there. But I want to hear everything you have to say. So let's talk about emotional maturity. Now, I have my definition, which I talk about in the book, which is, of course, all about managing and understanding your emotions. How am I feeling? What is it? Which then, as we step into it, gives us the ability to respond or not respond, but it gives us the ability to make that choice, like Marianne was saying about reaction, right? We don't have to react. We have an opportunity to respond when we're emotionally mature and know what we're feeling and know our emotions. So I would love to hear your words on what you feel about emotional maturity in general, and then we'll talk about responsibility, flexibility. So let's say in general about, you've already shared a little bit, Marianne, you did. So let's see a little bit about emotional maturity. I talked about emotional intelligence and intelligent and the IQ and the EQ in the book, saying that those things are measurable. And so that's part of looking at what emotional maturity is. So do you have it? Do you want it? And what are you doing with it? All right, who wants to go first? Donna, okay.
I will. Yeah, so coming from a place of emotional maturity when I'm able, I'm not always able, but it's the difference between being empowered and being a victim for me. And being a victim just does not feel good, and that's something that I'm actively working on in certain language. I will not use the term can't, I'll use won't. Instead, it's a choice.
It's a choice, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a choice.
It's an empowered choice, not an external choice. So that's, for me, emotional maturity is when I'm embodying that, I'm feeling empowered. I'm coming from a place of confidence and inner knowing and self-respect and self-love. versus victim, where you're, shooting blame all over the place. So
Right.
that's what comes up for me.
Good, I like it. Emotional maturity. Okay, who's next? Anybody else?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I read the chapter because I'm doing a lot of clearing for myself, that I noticed I have a low emotional maturity towards myself. And then I have a high emotional maturity, how I respond and react and work with
Oh,
other
that's
people
interesting.
around me.
Yeah.
So when I was reading through the chapter, that really came to light for me. I'm very impatient with myself. I want everything perfect and right and everything to be right. And it's just not that way. And I don't know why I can't get over that. So I'm working on it, but I need a lot of work. But
This is called your monkey mind, Michelle.
but
You
when
know,
people do,
when you're emotionally mature out there and you're not being good to yourself, this is our monkey mind working. This is the
got it.
monkey mind that does the monkey mind tortures us. I mean, the
It
monkey
does.
mind, when you get it tamed and trained, it can be very, very nice to us. But at the same time, if you're being able to be all right on the outside and not on the inside,
Yep.
it's because your monkey mind is torturing you. And that's where you need to tame and train your monkey mind.
Okay.
And I got a whole course on that.
Alrighty.
And what I say, and just briefly, what I say is first we have to meet and monitor it. First, you have to just start seeing what it does to you, what's triggered. And so you look at it that way, and then you journal about what it's saying to you. And that's the only way we can get a handle on what it is. And then we move into taming and training it, which I don't know if I put it on the book, but I've got that course on navigating the new reality that talks all about how to tame and train your monkey mind. I've been working on mine for years. It is really good. It's a good monkey mind now. It doesn't hurt me, but it does bother me sometimes.
Right.
But I go, no, stop.
Right.
So
Well, great. Thank you for sharing. I'll look into it. Thank you.
welcome, and happy to talk more about that when we have time.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. John, you got your mic off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a good way of doing it. I did that
Okay.
last time. All right. I'm reasonably good with responsibility and flexibility. The non-judgmental one, I wonder about. I do have opinions of people. And some people have an exaggerated something, and I'll notice it. I don't put them down for it, but it's observant. Now, I know some people that go shopping at ShopRite and come home. Oh, that person, look at the way they stood, and look at the way they said that. I don't do that. I'm very homogenous with everyone, in a large environment like that. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is the non-judgmental. And I think this is just to people, because when I go out in the world and I look at what's happening out there, I have a lot of judgments. And I wouldn't want to throw them away. I think they're valid for me. I'll open to other people's opinions on it, but I'm not going to sit there and look at atrocities and say, I don't want to, be opinionated about that. So that's kind of there. And I just want to say one thing, going back about 20, 25 years ago to my second wife, her and somebody else turned around to me and said, you're very judgmental. And the first thing that came to my mind, aren't they judgmental telling me I'm judgmental? So I'll end with that.
It goes around. Yeah, it goes around.
Yeah.
Yeah, non-judgment is a good topic to share on, because we all have experience with that on a regular basis.
Right.
And so, yeah, we really do. So anyone else on emotional maturity?
Yes. Hi, Darty.
Hi, Danny.
Hi. Okay. Well, beginning this chapter, I was like, this is beautiful. I wonder what I'm going to learn. And I looked at emotional maturity. I think I'm mature. So when I seen the EI that you had put in there, I said, EI, what is that? So I Googled it, right? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm going to take the EI test. Okay.
Oh, good.
I don't know where I did, but I did take it, and
Uh-huh.
okay, went through and make sure I get this right, because I I'm emotionally mature. And
Learn well.
it came out, it says you're a rock, you're the rock. And I was like, oh, I've got this chapter. Okay, I'm the rock. And then as it's going along, you started to talk about emotional maturity, doing, acting and thinking and doing in a way that we should, in a way that we've been taught to do the right thing, to all the basic standards that that make maybe a good person, that kind of thing. And I said, okay, check. And I do these things. And then you began to go further into reaction, response, that next topic. And it was a whoa, uh-oh. I have a lot to learn. So I thank you for opening that topic up.
Thank you for sharing that. Thanks. Anyone else on emotional maturity? We're moving into responsibility next. Okay, we'll just move on to responsibility, because I think that's a good one. That, to me, was really big, because I've been probably one of the most responsible people in my life. I was the oldest of 6 children, and so I was really the most responsible in my household. I had an alcoholic mother at the time, and I had a lot of responsibility. But the responsibility as an aspect of emotional maturity was really the ability to respond to the ability to respond. To me, responding in a thoughtful, cogent way instead of like reaction, like we were just talking, like Danny was just talking about. And in the book, I talked about how we take responsibility for everything. So there's responsibility, because we all need to be responsible. We need to pay our bills and take care of our kids and do our responsible things. But at the same time, that's not the kind of responsibility that I talk about with regard to emotional maturity, although that is an aspect of it. I talk about the ability to respond, which is managing our emotions and not reacting. And then, of course, I come to the talk about blame, which is all part of that responsibility, taking responsibility, because we greatly grow and evolve when we take responsibility for everything in our life. Oh my God, everything in our life is our responsibility. Now that, of course, flows from my particular belief that we create our own reality, that everything is here, nothing happens to us, everything is there for our learning and our journey and all that. And everything just is what it is, doing what it does, which goes with non-judgment, another topic, right? So what I want to hear from you, because blaming others is not taking responsibility, right? And I hear a lot of people blame other people for a lot of things. And like, so I'm enough about me. I want to hear what you guys think about responsibility from what I wrote about in the book. And I covered quite a few topics on that. So who's going first on responsibility? Okay.
Darty, I would just like to add to this, the blaming. When you started to talk about blaming, I said, blaming others. How often do I do that? And then I realized that for me, I think it had just become habit, that it was that deeply ingrained to blame something. And you brought up the question of, do you have, does there have to always be blame? Who says anyone has to be to blame? And
ever for anything.
Ever.
Oh, that's
It was huge. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. It's easy to blame others. You hear it every day in the media. Everybody's looking for to blame somebody. I'm like, what? Stuff happens. I mean, that's part of the new reality, is that everything just is what it is, doing what it does, and it's acting out as it acts out. And I always talk about observing and discerning, which is what part of non-judgment when we get to it. But yeah, I think that, we don't need to do that. John, you have a comment?
Yeah. I've been connected with two organizations. One was the Mankind Project, which I'm currently with, and when I did something called the S Training in the Forum and stuff like that. And they used to talk about, our observance of reality, which so I can equate that to blame. Whatever happens out there is our fault. Not our fault, but it's something we created. Even to the point of if you going somewhere and traffic is very heavy and you say, I'm sorry, I'm late, you still hold the blame for that. They say you're kind of blamed for the heavy traffic. This may be taking this a step further. This is very hard for me to get, and I don't know if I agree with it, but so if I can get that, then I could say, yeah, people, if someone has a reaction to me, I can say, gee, they had a reaction, but then I can say, well, maybe I did something, so I have to take a certain blame and they're reacting to me. So I know we live in a give and take, and in many ways, we probably do sort of create those out there who are with us and their reactions to us and stuff. I'm just going to stop there. I'm getting too deep.
Well, blame to me is an excuse for our actions.
Yeah.
More than it is when somebody does something and because blame is it's one of the things Wayne Dyer talked about, is one of those useless waste of time. Blame is a waste of time. Whether you're blaming yourself for something you did or somebody else is blaming you, it is of no consequence. It's not part of being emotionally mature to blame, because you're making you're making an excuse for yourself or others by blaming. It's easy. It's part of our conditioning. And and that's what I talk about in the book, is how do we get by the conditioning? I've been conditioned to blame, but I don't do it anymore. It's like, who cares? But yeah, David, go.
Yeah. I was just thinking, when I find myself blaming, it seems to be related. If I'm blaming somebody or something for whatever, and it's a real strong reaction, chances are that I'm trying to avoid it. It's kind of like a reflection of a part of me that I don't particularly care for.
Yes.
And so I project it outward in the form of blaming. And so I'm learning that as they say, if you spot it, you got it.
Exactly.
And it's a real learning process for me.
It's a process for all of us to catch ourselves. And that's part of what I talk about in the book as far as conditioning is concerned. We've been conditioned to think like this. I talk about the ruts we get into, and those thought patterns, like blame is one of them. And so when we break away from, when we practice it, like you said, if you thought it, you got it. If you see it, you got it. That kind of thing that's how you start breaking it. That's how you start being able to say, oh no, okay. And you stop doing it. You stop doing it. It's a practice. All of these things are practices that we integrate into our life to support us on our journey, because it clears the way. And that's the whole point of becoming your authentic self, is to open. Because in opening, clearing the path by getting away from all these conditions, all of these thoughts, all of these kind of things that interfere, opens the path to a broader connection, a more expansive connection to all that is, or God, or whatever you want to call it. And that's the purpose in becoming your authentic true self. David.
Yeah, I just have one more comment. I'm going to coattail on something my wife shared with me a number of years ago, that it's all light, it's all good, and it's all God. Therefore, if I'm reacting to something, there's something for me to learn in that reaction.
Absolutely.
For healing, for growth. And it's a process. And sometimes it's more of a struggle than others. But I'm working on it.
As am I, as are we all, which is what we're here talking about. Yeah. Thanks, David. That's good. Yeah. Anybody else on responsibility?
Yes,
Any?
Doherty, just to add again to that, like when you said the word responsibility, and then you separated it to responsibility,
Mhm.
I looked at that for a while. Responsibility, yeah. Okay, let's do that for a minute. And with that, with the blame thing, you know, you had written after that, like, who cares? Just in the point of freeing ourselves from having to have that. Where did it come from? Who does it belong to? Who did it? For me, it's not that that's not important, but why attach that to ourselves? And I felt that freedom pretty instantly after reading that. I felt like, yeah, I'm taking that one with me.
Good. Thank you. Marianne.
Unmute myself. There I am. Well, when you talk about responsibility, I, as a child, was responsible for my parents because they were very dysfunctional. And that was my introduction into the world. So as I started to make poor choices, it was their fault. I blame them for everything that happened to me. And I held on to that blame throughout a long period of time. Now I have made all these horrible mistakes, and now I have 4 children. And now I start blaming myself. You know, everything I did, you know, was because of what my parents did, but now I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing, overreacting, the drama with the children. So it took a lot of blaming to realize that I wasn't in self-love at all. It was easier to blame everybody else for everything that I was doing. And that led me to realizing that my parents, in order to be able to get over that, I had to realize that my parents did the best that they could, knowing what they knew how to do. I looked at what they came from. And then I had to say the same thing for myself and release myself.
And that becomes forgiveness, you know? That is part of forgiveness, is letting that go. Forgiving them, right? And forgiving yourself for even blaming them. I mean, that's part of our growth and part of our evolution, is to forgive ourselves and forgive others for everything.
And that's to rewrite the story.
Yes, exactly right. And to rewrite the story. And to not hang on to the past or what happened or who or what. I mean, that's something I talk about. And that all of this flows together, in my opinion. Of course, I mean, it just really does, because all of the 5 keys relate to getting us to a point of being emotionally mature. And we all want to be emotionally mature. At least I do. Are we? That's a point. I was just at the beauty shop today, and I was sitting there and getting my nails done, and some woman was getting her hair washed behind me, and all she was doing was complaining, and I'm going, And I told my manicurist, you know, when all you can do is complain and blame, and she was blaming other people that weren't taking care of her, weren't doing enough for her, weren't bad. And I'm going, wow, you know, it's so prevalent out there in the old reality, in that dying world that we're moving away from, that what we're doing as we move forward, as we move our lives forward, is to evolve and to, you know, the world is devolving. We got that going on, but we need to not pay attention to the lower frequencies. We just support those that are coming along as we evolve. And I'm surprised. I see that so much. So I'm glad we're here. They're here doing it. Did you have something you wanted to say, Danny?
Yeah. With the responsibility part, moving through, doing more healing, diving deeper, I realized that I reached a next sort of step. Okay, taking responsibility for myself. It's me. That's it. Just me. And I'm just, okay, well, that's freeing. And then I guess it's my monkey mind came to me and said, it is you. Wow, it's you. And I felt like a spotlight was on me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I mean, okay, we're human, we're on this journey, but then I was back to the 5 Qs. So
Good job. Well, let's move on for flexibility, right? The next aspect I found that works so much for me, becoming emotionally mature, was becoming flexible. And what that meant to me, to being emotionally mature, was that becoming flexible in my mind, my body, and my spirit. And that's incorporating, are you incorporating flexibility into your life? And I always talk about, a lot of times I write about it, and I think I talked about it in this chapter. And that is, being flexible supports us being able to bend with the wind and the breezes that come, those kind of things that move us back and forth. And when you're rigid or you're stagnant, then you get broken. And there's no breakthroughs or anything that come because you can't be moved and you're not being flexible. And incorporating flexibility, because we're rigid, we can be, and our conditioning supports our ability to be rigid in thoughts, as well as words, as well as actions. And that's something we hear about all the time now. I mean, those of us who are on the spiritual path, we talk about being in the flow of flowing. Well, you can't be flow if you're rigid in thought, mind, or spirit. And so flexibility brought to me that place of understanding that I just need to go more with the flow and stop being so locked into what I feel or what I think, or being rigid in my mostly conditioning, I think. So I'm anxious to hear from you. Now, does it work for you? Is it hard? Do you think you have to fight your conditioning to become more flexible? Is flexibility easy for you? Okay, it's up to you now.
I'll go.
Okay, Michelle.
I think I'm pretty flexible. I think that's one of my good traits. And it's something I have to work on as well. When I find something that's not working for me, they say that, your point of view is your reality. I look at my point of view about whatever issue it is or whatever, and it's usually pretty staunch and it's inflexible. So I'll like, okay, interesting point of view, and what can I do to change it? Because if I wanted to grow beyond that, I would have to change my point of view and look at the other possibilities that are around it to make that, whatever that thing is, better. Now, if I could do that about myself, that would be great. But everything around me, I do really well. So yeah, I think being flexible also gives you so much more opportunities and magic.
I do.
Lots of magic and serendipity. I see, the more I relax and the more I become flexible in my mind and thoughts, and more better things happen. I mean, it happens better than I expect it to. Versus having this one issue be so significant, or I'm so staunch on, it's got to be,
Yeah.
When I'm able to let that go, wow, life is so much easier. And then, of course, the people around you are light and easy and kind of carry on that vibration. So, yeah, I love flexibility.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful.
Being flexible, yes. It's a really good thing. Yeah, I agree. And it's a constant work in progress for all of us. Who wants to go next? Donna.
Yeah, so this has been a challenge for me, flexibility wise. And I think that I've made pretty good strides in, like, when events kind of, there's a wrench in the works and that sort of thing. for sure. But where I struggle a little bit is I like my physical environment very orderly. And when it's not, I kind of get a little twisted up inside, and it's like a physical reaction, And I
Yeah,
think I've been this way since I was a child, but I could never have articulated it back then.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I need a little letting go,
Yeah.
and I struggle with that too, because okay, it's okay to have a preference, right? Which is definitely, an orderly environment is my preference, but to have my sense of well-being tied to that, I'm giving my
that.
power away, and so I
Exactly.
see it, and intellectually I definitely see it.
Yeah.
But I have a little.
Yeah, I agree. I have that same one. And so I remind myself to be flexible. And then I have like an unflexible rule, in the sense, if it's still there after 5 days, I move it. So I'm flexible to a point, because I too like things where they're supposed to be, because that's what I was thinking about when you were talking. I said, oh, wow, I like that too. I have, the way, and I think my husband would have something to say about that. But yeah, and part of being flexible is staying with it, staying to do it.
Right. And I guess like I can't be in the kitchen.
Not attach our well-being to it is the
right,
point.
exactly.
And
I was just going to make a joke, like I can't be in the kitchen when my husband's cooking because he doesn't put stuff away as he goes along, He'll put it away eventually, but I can't see, I can't
You can't
witness the
see it happen,
process.
yeah. See, and that's being flexible. Practice is standing there and going, okay, I see this. Now, John, you got your mic open.
Yeah, I don't have to raise my hand away.
No, I see
Yeah,
you.
what was coming to me is flexibility and flow, and I'm going to use them, kind of together. They're
Flexibility and what?
flow.
Flow. Okay.
Yeah, they're teachers. I've been noticing in my life, I'm going along and doing this, and everything's falling in place. I'm doing that, so I'm like flowing, and I'm flexible. Now, good things that happen, so I can't necessarily say I'm flexible because nothing's bothering me to be unflexible, but I am flowing. Then something will come along and whack, it stops me. And what I'm getting now, when that happens, I'm being told something, I'm being taught something, probably mostly about myself. Like, whoop, why are you stuck? And then I have to look at that and then get unstuck and then start flowing again. And it also reminds me, if any of you are familiar with the Hopi prophecy, where they talk about there is a river flowing, stay in the center of the river, flow with it, do not hold on to the sides. So this is what we really have to learn as we go forward, as we ascend, as we progress, as we become more and more. It is absolutely necessary to flow. And that's my contribution.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It is truly. Anyone else on flexibility?
I was looking through your chapter a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
I really like this section where you talk about adjust and adapt, changing your mind.
Yes.
I remember when I was in the Navy, there's a lot of stuff that's happening on a daily basis, especially when you're practicing to keep peacetime and all that kind of stuff. So I used to change my mind all the time, and it used to frustrate the people I worked with. It's like, I always had to explain myself, I just learned all this stuff, and now I have a totally different opinion of how we could expand whatever we were doing. And I think that's also part of this flexibility, is being able to kind of go with the waves and the wind and the information you receive and the way you process it. And because
And
you're
changing our mind, yeah.
Yeah, you wind up making a better decision, not only for yourself, but when I make a decision, I always think about how it affects other people. So yeah, my decisions kept getting better and better and better because there was so much more information or lessons learned or whatever it is. But I was always the one that would change my mind all the time. You always change your mind. I always had to hear that. It drove me crazy.
And that's frowned upon, at least in our society. Oh my gosh, how can you change your mind? There's something wrong with that. And I'm going, no, It's not. You can change your mind, Dave.
Actually, it sounds like an aside, and I guess it is. I'm currently reading an autobiography of Frederick Douglass, and he is one of my heroes. He faced incredible obstacles growing up in slavery and escaping from it that would crumple most everybody else, but he was able to survive hideous things, I think in part not only by being responsible, but also being flexible.
Yes.
He would be dead early.
Yeah.
It just, when you're talking about that, it just made me think about him. You know, it's the unbelievable kind of stuff.
Yeah. How important it is. Flexibility is really important. I mean, it's something people talk about, but they don't realize the impact and how it supports our becoming more emotionally mature. A lot of people don't think flexibility, they don't think of it as a value. They don't think it's important. And yet I found on my own path that I think Marianne, you put up something about about Krishnamurti's story. And that's one of the most wonderful things that changed my life, as far as the ability to allow myself to be more flexible. And if you haven't heard it, I'll tell you the short version. And that is Krishnamurti was a spiritual teacher, back in the 30s. He finally decided that he was ready to retire. And he got in front of his audience for the last time, 3,000 people sitting there. He's giving his last words of his lecture, telling his life and telling people. And he said, I want to give you my secret. Everybody sits forward in their chairs going, oh my goodness sakes, we're finally hearing the secret. We've been following this guy for years and he's finally going to tell us his secret. And he said, my secret is I don't mind what happens.
Mm.
And the profundity of that is so powerful to me and supported me in so many ways that it has become a part of my life now. I mean, when some obstacle, like John was saying, when some obstacle comes in my way, I say, boy, am I glad I don't mind what happens. Or, gee, I'm glad I don't mind what happens. Or, good thing it doesn't matter. It's a good thing I don't mind what happens. And a friend of mine and I, we do this all the time. She has something come up in her life. She said, boy, good thing. And we both go, yeah, good thing. And it's just become a real part of our life, a real practice. And I remember when I said that sometimes when my sister died in my arms, I remember saying, sometimes it's hard not to mind what happens. That was very difficult. And yet at the same time, I took the spiritual experience it was to support her in her crossing over right at that moment and realized I don't mind what happens, and realized how powerful that leads to the flexibility of our mind, our body, and our spirit. Yeah. So if we want to wind up flexibility, and we probably should time-wise, flexibility, I believe that being flexible provides us with the ability to shift zones between this old dying world that we've got going on and the new world and the new reality that we're birthing right here, right now. And we're all moving into it. Not all of us, but I mean, all of us here are moving into that world. And that flexibility provides us the ability to manage our own emotional maturity and brings us to what's important in life. Because we can look at what's important rather than getting caught up in the fluff. And so flexibility, I think, is really important. And then my personal favorite, because it's an all-time practice, and that is non-judgment. So the last aspect of emotional maturity that I want to talk about is non-judgment, a very important and ongoing practice, and supports my own emotional maturity all the time. So I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on this subject. Exercising non-judgment brings more expansiveness and inner peace into our lives when we stop judging everything. I remember the first time I had this every year for my birthday for the last, 60 years. I've been given a path to follow for the year. And I remember one year I got non-judgment, and I remember, whoa. And this was very long time ago in the 90s. And I remember telling my friend, now, of course, I was an attorney, right? So I'm telling my friend who was an attorney, I said, my path for this year, my spiritual path is to work on non-judgment. She goes, you can't do that. How can you do that? And I'm going, yeah, how am I going to do that? And I thought, well, I think I'll give it a try anyway. And so I did. And I got my best work on the freeway, I'll tell you. Boy, the people cut you off, that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah, wait, no. And so I found out and really learned how to practice non-judgment. And still, the monkey mind wants to do it every once in a while. And I stop it. No, don't. So it's a constant. It's something we need to keep up because it's something we're taught, something we do, part of being human, part of being human. So let me hear about you. What does non-judgment mean to you? Can you practice it? Can you do it? Is it hard? Do you like it? What do you think? Who wants to go first? Danielle.
I'm working on it. It's the best I can say. I'm making progress.
Good.
I'm more able to watch political commentaries without having to change the channel or whatever. I'm doing better. My wife has been a huge support in that process. Huge.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. Being able to discern and also forgive too. For
Oh,
things that
yeah.
I'm particularly careful
Right.
to give and say.
Part of
It's a definite
non-judgment.
process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of non-judgment is that ability to discern, that ability to observe. A lot of times I'll say to people, I'll say something that I'm seeing, but I'm observing, and I'll tell people, because they want to, I'm not judging, I'm just saying this is what I observe. But when you make it right or wrong, this is right, this is wrong, that's our old duality paradigm that we're moving out of, right? We're moving into our understanding and embodying the consciousness of oneness, that we're all connected, we are one, moving out of that detour of duality that Solara talks about. We've been in that detour for thousands of years and moving out of it. And that's good, bad, right, wrong. It doesn't mean there's not contrast in our world, because certainly there's contrast. There's contrast in everything. But that doesn't mean it has to be right or wrong. It just is what it is, doing what it does. And look, I took over. You guys talk about judgment. Donna.
So I did some work with a coach a number of years ago. It was like a three-year program. And we talked a lot about discerning a fact from a judgment.
Yes.
And in the beginning of our work together, man, was I blown out of the water by the judgments that I was believing were factual.
Yes.
And like, oh man. So we did a lot of work. And when I finally understood that if I'm judging something, it has something to do with me and not the other person, I'm triggered in some way.
Right.
That was liberating for me, it was a little daunting too, I guess, but it was liberating. And it was like, okay, well, I can do something about this. I have some power here. And I was also going to say something else that just went out of my head.
I hate when that happens.
It's gone. But anyway, that was life-changing for me.
Wow. Yeah,
Work
that's
with the
good
coach.
work.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. And also what I've learned over the years too, we are so programmed by our early childhood experiences, right? And I recently read a book called What Happened to You. Oprah Winfrey co-wrote it with a psychiatrist named Bruce somebody. And it's basically, if you're observing behavior that would be judged as unacceptable, whatever, to look at it, wow, what got triggered in you from your early experience? And that has opened the door to compassion and just the willingness to understand and just have empathy. And I've been telling people every human on the planet should read this book because it really sheds a light on, wow, what happened to you, instead of why are you behaving so badly? No, what happened to you that would trigger this kind of reaction, behavior, whatever it might be. So,
Right.
So anyway, I still have a little ways to go, but yeah.
You're working on it. You're working on
I
it. Yeah.
sure am.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Paula, you got your mic off?
Yes, believe it or not, I have my mic off because this is like one of my specialties. So I feel like I have a lot of authority in judging. My mother taught me very well. I grew up with it, so she taught me the ins and outs. I something in front of me, I can judge it. So I am also been on the spiritual path for a long time, and I've also done a lot of work on myself, but I really haven't crossed the line yet, or I'm willing to give up a lot of that judging because it's fun. And because it enables me to have camaraderie with other people. I mean, if we're both judging, that's amazing. That's so much fun. There's a connection there. So I do allow myself up until a certain point. Then, there's one thing to say, oh my gosh, look at her shoes, or look at
Oh, no.
what outfit she put together today, or something like that. That's in light. But I am conscious and aware when I step over the line and I'm judging someone, like you said in the book, about it's not just because you can't cook, you're a lousy cook. You're a lousy person because you can't cook. I think
Yes,
that's
exactly,
the
exactly.
example you used in the book. So like, I'm watching these news shows or something, and I'm saying, you're an evil person. You're a horrible person just because of their idea about something, or their philosophy, or what they believe in. So then that's when I really have to stand back
And say no.
look at it more closely and use discernment
And observation, and realize that, there's
not
differences.
let my monkey mind go.
Your monkey man likes that.
So sometimes it'll do that. It'll say, okay, calm down now. Like you said, it's not our circus.
That's right. That's right. Not our monkey, not our circus. Thank you, Paula. Anybody else on judgment?
Yeah, I don't, kind of,
Okay.
what I'm starting to pick up, that everything is judgmental. What we call judgmental is looking and saying good or bad or
Good, bad,
wrong.
right, wrong. Yeah.
But when we look at it out in our environment and we see people, some feel better to us than others. That girl over there is really cute. That one isn't so cute. Things like that. You're not really judging them as individuals, but you have feelings and opinions on everything. You go to a movie. I really like that movie. I like this book. I didn't like this book. So I don't think that level of judgmental is wrong. I think that's life.
I don't call it judgment. I don't call that judgment, John.
Okay.
That's observation. That's as long as you're not making it right or wrong, you make decisions about them, what color to wear. I mean, those are, I don't like this color, I like that color. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not right or wrong or good or bad. Those are personal things you make yourself. I'm talking about judgment in the sense of how we do it, in the sense that we make people wrong and bad
right.
I mean, and it's the same kind of thing. I mean, and I feel like that moving into non-judgment is another one of those things that opens and clears the ability for us to have a broader connection within ourselves to all that is. Because when we're judging someone, it restricts our ability to realize, unless we get there, unless we embody our timeless true selves and understand they are a part of us, that they are us, that everything is us. When you come to the realization of the oneness of all things, that they are us. So when we say that there's something other than us, we're making them wrong or bad because they're other than us. And that's what I talk about with non-judgment. So we step back from that. So understanding the difference between observation and discernment, because when there's things that are going on, particularly in our divisive world right now, there's one side or the other, and there's not one side or the other. There are opinions and decisions about different things. And our point is to rise above it and to see the new world, the new earth rising, to see the new world rising up, and to see the way things can be, and for us to be who we want to be in that world. And when we bring our authentic selves in, we flip our hearts so that we become part of all that is, part of that journey, part of that story. Paula.
Yes, it just makes me think that really the barometer for our judging can be, is your heart open? Like, can you think this about that person or that thing while your heart is open? And I think if you're feeling your heart shut down really tight, then that's
Yeah.
a sign that you're being judgmental as opposed to discerning
And observing, yeah.
and observing.
Yeah.
Clarity, I'd like to add on to what Paula just said. I feel like for me that when I'm in judgment, that usually it's connected to my thoughts, more like my monkey mind, being busy, I'm going. But it seems like when I tame my monkey mind and I calm down and I'm in the present moment, that I'm not in judgment. I'm just relaxed. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's one of those things like we talk about with all of this. Everything is a practice. Everything is a practice, and it's an ongoing practice. I mean, I've been at it for many, 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 many decades. And it grows as we grow. And that's what's important. Important that we want to evolve, we want to move, we want to grow. And emotional maturity moves our lives to just a whole different perspective. So more peaceful, more balanced, not so busy with worrying about stuff. Emotional maturity supports our foundation of our authentic self and also gives us the ability to function in a way that we want in a way that we want to be in the world. Because that's something I say a lot today to a lot of people. Every chance I get, no matter where you are in your life, people seem to understand nowadays when I talk to people anywhere, that you want to be the change you want to see in the world. What Mahatma Gandhi said is really something that applies. And in being that authentic true self, when you get there, and being emotionally mature, which of course then supports us moving into our spiritual maturity. So a lot of this, I think people look at us like like we've got two heads sometimes when we talk about these kind of things. At least it's my experience. But inside is the peace. Inside is where we want to feel balanced and have that feeling of connection with all that is. So that concludes our discussion of emotional maturity. So I want to say, join us again next week, same time, same station. And next week, here on Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude, we're going to talk about spiritual maturity and conclude with the closure of the book about becoming really our true selves and the value of that. Spiritual maturity is one of my favorite things. The 5 keys unlock the door to ourselves to move us into emotional maturity and then on into spiritual maturity, which supports us on our path into the new world, into the new reality. So join us again next week. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, participants, for all your support. I appreciate it. And thank you. Living in Heart-Centered Gratitude, space for us to have this fabulous conversation. So, hugs from me to you, love from my heart to yours. Aho.